Canadians get a win here at the SheBelieves Cup. 2-0 the final. A nice bounce back after dropping their opener 2-0 to the United States. As we welcome you inside our One Soccer studio for Matchday Live, the post-game show. Andi Petrillo alongside Lisi, Clare, Rustad also joining us. And in the pre-game show, we knew that the Canadians in Game 1 were completely distracted with a lot of the things going on off the pitch. The coach said it. The players themselves said it. We knew they needed to refocus. So how badly did they need this result?
I mean, obviously they needed it so they weren't at the bottom of the table. But to get that out of the way, I think they really needed it just to get their head in the right place. Although it wasn't the cleanest performance, it was much better than their performance against the U.S. I definitely think they desperately needed that just to kind of, shake their head and get back into that mentality, that self-belief mentality, and know that they are capable of winning.
We'll get into the X's and O's, a lot of what we saw here tonight, Claire, but sometimes, you could speak to this as an athlete, even if there were mistakes along the way, looking up at the scoreboard and seeing that you won, that can do a lot for your confidence. That can do a lot for just shaking anything off and say, all right, we're in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the result is important, but part of the main thing about results in a tournament like this is also getting some answers. And I think this result, despite it being a win, does raise a lot more questions and answers. And the questions still for me are, is this team as solid defensively as we might have thought? There were some cohesion issues and certainly some communication issues that were brought to light, particularly in the last game, and that remained in the game today. They were a little bit more coherent as a back four, but I do think there is a serious issue with defensive consistency here that needs to be addressed. And I still do not think this team is consistently dangerous offensively. I think fantastic on set pieces. Absolutely. You want to be the set piece team. That's great. And that certainly will become much more consistent the more that Jessie Fleming is responsible for the distribution. But realistically, can you rely on set pieces to get yourself to a World Cup final? That's certainly a big piece of it, and they certainly will help. But I do think they need to be much more dangerous in the final third.
Something we didn't see after Game 1, all smiles on the pitch there. Camera lingering on Evelyne, Viens, who got the second goal for Canada. So let's take a look at the updated table now here at the SheBelieves Cup. A loss and a win for the Canadians, so they will move into the second spot. Really kind of, tied a little bit here with Brazil, but on goal differential, a bit different. Japan remaining at the bottom. They are winless in the 2 games that they have played. Remember, this is the second time Canadians are playing in the SheBelieves Cup. First time was 2021, where they ended up finishing in 3rd. So the goal here, of course, will stay into the top 2. Let's look at goal number 1 for the Canadians. That comes in the 31st minute here. Claire, I'm going to give it all to you because you just said it there when it comes to Jessie Fleming. You love the fact that she was taking the corners.
Yeah, and like I said at halftime, I don't have a lot of notes for this kind of goal. I thought the timing of the run was excellent. Jenny and Becky, that run to the near post and beyond the near post, extremely important. Look, she pulls 2 defenders, pulls 1 defender out of the way and distracts the other defender enough to leave a big hole for Vanessa Gilles in behind her. And Vanessa Gilles, if she doesn't make that header, she's got Buchanan and sorry, I can't even see who the second player was behind her, but I think it's actually Lawrence. But she has Buchanan and Ashley Lawrence right behind her. Those spaces are all filled. They're just so much more dangerous on set pieces, and it's a really important role to have. But it just can't be the only thing that they have offensively.
Yeah, obviously, props to her for that kind of finish, because it is a very difficult finish. And I know I said that at halftime, but people assume you just stick your head in the way. No, it's a lot more complicated than that. And you saw her body positioning, you saw the timing, and all of that. But it is also from the psychological aspect. We were talking about how Gilles was recovering from an injury, and we saw that she hasn't been at her best in the SheBelieves Cup so far. So I do think that was a big moment for her as well, and it'll be great for her to bounce back from it.
Yeah, a hip injury kept her out of action for quite a few months. She's now with Lyon, just started to get some regular minutes in the fall, but you do wonder where her fitness is at, because she struggled a little bit, but then started to look good, gets the goal, does come off in the second half. Let's go to the second half now, because that's when the second goal came for Canada, 71st minute. Heading into the second 45, I had asked any changes that you wanted to see, and Jess, you were very emphatic that you wanted to see Evelyne Viens. Oh, look, Jessie Fleming, there she is taking set piece. But how about Evelyne Viens?
Yeah, I mean, this is another finish. You know, you watch Evelyne, she times it perfectly. To come in contact with that is, again, very difficult. It's not something that, you know, everybody could do. But I personally, I love watching Evelyne play. If you get her in that 18-yard box, she will punish you. She's somebody that is that traditional 9. She's very strong, and she does fight, you know, right to that last minute. If she can get even a toe on the ball, she will do so. So that was just a perfect example of, you know, her finishing abilities in and around that 18-yard box.
Yeah, I don't even think this was the best distribution from Jessie Fleming. I think she leaves it a little bit short. But the key part about the distribution from Fleming is that she hits it without too much altitude. So there's enough speed on the ball that ball can be flicked on and a chance can be made out of it. The key part about Evelyne Viens is that nose for being in the right place at the right time isn't blind luck. That's a talent. And you can see her just hang back, wait for the rebound to come out. She knows it's going to come to her. It really is a talent to have that kind of nose for the goal. The only other player on this team who shows that talent consistently is Christine Sinclair. And as we know, she's not going to last forever. So I think having a player like Evelyne Viens, whether she's coming in off of the bench or whether she is able to work her way into the starting lineup. Haven't seen that quite yet, but if she is, hugely important talent to have.
Yeah, and we did see Chloe Lacasse. She came on in this one as well, and in those friendlies back in the fall, she ended up scoring her first goal for country. Do you want to see her get more time? I mean, Clarissa Laracy is another player, Clare, who also came in those friendlies in the fall. She, too, picked up her first goal for Canada. Do you want to see more of those options when we talk about where is that attack for Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the third match against Japan has to be the moment where Bev Priestman starts to use more of those players more consistently. Again, like we said in the pregame, we don't know what kind of fitness both Prince and Deanne Rose are going to have when they come back from their injuries. I expect them both to come back and both be fit for the World Cup. But it's you know, you never know how these things go, and you never know if they're going to be fit for a full 90 minutes. So you have to have options coming in off the bench, and they have to be dangerous options. There has to be some speed that you can bring on off the bench. There has to be that nose for the goal, that mind to go forward and to. You guys just saw the fly come into my shot. That nose for the goal and the willingness to go forward and take players on. And that has to be everywhere. That can't just be in the starting 3. That has to be everybody comes off the bench. So those players need to get minutes in that third game.
You know who else sometimes sees a big one, though, come across her, is Kailen Sheridan. And she swats it away. Because when we get into the defensive game here for the Canadians, Kailen Sheridan, once again, is a brick wall as we bring you the All-State save of the match. She had a couple in this one, but this is in the 55th minute. The Miller just turns on the Jets, gets past Buchanan. But Sheridan just timing it right, comes on out, makes a save. And like I said, Jess, we saw some other saves by Sheridan in this one. She's called upon quite a bit. I think she accepts that challenge. But you have to think, too, when your goalkeeper's making those saves, you want to, tidy that up, but that's giving you a ton of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we were talking about how hard to finish those goals were. But to do that is, you know, it's remarkable because at the end of the day, you expect the player to score there. You know, Sheridan its odds are against her. The player's coming full speed at her. All they have to do is pick a corner. And she still somehow gets her leg on that. So, you know, obviously the fact that she had to make that save, yes, is very questionable and she shouldn't be put in that position. But the fact that she is up for the challenge every single time and she continues, you know, to be great and to save Canada is great. It really does speak to her talent.
And I think the important part about Kailen Sheridan is that kind of save, again, is not something that's blind luck. The timing on a save like that is really important because the timing is the difference between a save off of her toe or a yellow card. If she misses that ball and impacts a forward, yellow, even potentially a red card in a scenario like that. So her timing was excellent today. Thought she did a really good job. And again, this is just kind of the next goalkeeper in a long list of an abundance of good goalkeepers that Canada's had over the years. It's really great for goalkeepers like Kailen Sheridan to grow up and play under goalkeepers like Steph Labbe, who grew up and played under Erin McLeod, who grew up and played under Karina LeBlanc. Like, it's just this long history of good goalkeeping for Canada. And it's great to see that it's continuing.
Timing, working the angles. Yes, Kailen Sheridan was on the ball tonight, earning that clean sheet as Canada walks away with the 2-0 win over Brazil. Was it the most perfect game? No. We'll get into some of the areas you'd like to see cleaned up before they take on Japan in their final match. And we'll also kind of look back at one defensive miscue. Is it a trend or is it, nah, don't worry, Andi? Let's find out. full-time stats, Canada 2-0 over Brazil, putting way more shots the way of the goalkeeper this time around. Shots on target, though, started to die down a little bit in that second half, which is something we're going to talk about now, because Brazil managing to turn things around and kind of scaring the Canadians a little bit before the Canadians got that insurance goal in the 71st minute, thanks to the substitute Evelyne Viens, as we welcome you back into One Soccer, She Believes Cup. Andi, Jess, Clare with you. So what part of the game, what area, is there anything in specific or maybe a theme here, Clare, that concerns you still with the Canadians?
Well, we've talked a lot about it already, but I think it started to really hinge from a lot of lost individual battles. And secondary to that would be just that work for positioning off the ball that wasn't done. And what with that comes your ability to cover each other. So losing the individual battle with no cover behind you, well, then obviously you're going to get beaten pretty hard. And that happens several times. And it really just can't. So if you have someone like Kadisha Buchanan step in to try to win the ball, you almost have to think about, what do you do if she loses the ball, right? You almost have to think about that negative side of things. How do you position yourself so that you can cover for your central defender, cover for your teammate, and put yourself in the best position to win the ball back and make something productive out of it? And those are the things that just really were not happening in this match. They were worse against the Americans, but really just weren't happening today.
Yeah, and to Claire's point, like, the decision-making on the ball was quite poor. Canada was forcing certain times where they could have played the simple pass. They were forcing, the ball that didn't need to be played. So we did talk a lot about the transition part as well. Brazil is so great in transition, and that is, they were playing right into Brazil's strength. So Canada was giving those easy balls away. Brazil was able to attack. And, obviously they did not score in the end, but there was some dangerous opportunities created because of Canada's lack of decision-making.
Brazil also with the high press, Jess, and it just seemed like that rattled maybe the Canadians at times, because they wanted to take their time a little bit on the ball, create those passes, build out of the back. But when you have a team that plays the way Brazil does, which we saw the Americans as well, putting that pressure on you, that seemed to rattle them a little bit, and then I guess create those turnovers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's surprising, because we have always spoken about how strong Canada is defensively. So to see them almost, fumble under pressure is a little bit surprising, but they are also typically very comfortable playing out of the back. And these two teams didn't allow them that freedom to do so. So that definitely is something that I believe they need to work on, going into the next match, and also, preparing for a World Cup.
A concerning trend, or maybe just a little bit of a coincidence, but in back-to-back games, we've seen this scary play. So against the Americans, this was the miscue here. Vanessa Gilles pass back to Kailen Sheridan, not in position. Mallory Swanson taking full advantage to get the goal. And then this is like carbon copy. Same area on the pitch. This time, though, it's Buchanan getting it back to Sheridan. She doesn't get there in time, but the Canadians managed to break it up. Chapman getting back in time. I don't know how you're feeling. Like, what is happening on the pitch that it's the exact same play once again?
I mean, that's a shocking play to see at this level. We spoke about it in the U.S. game. We couldn't believe that it happened, and to see it happen again today is just, it's a wow moment for sure. But, at the end of the day, it's so easy to look at the player, like to look at Gilles or Buchanan and say, well, that was a horrible pass back. But it's a little deeper than that. There is a communication aspect that's super important. So whether that's coming from Sheridan or the players surrounding them, in that case, Buchanan slid over to cover for Chapman. And was Chapman telling her that there was a man coming? There's a lot more to it, but I do believe that the communication aspect is a big thing that might be lacking, whether that's from Sheridan or that's from the players surrounding Gilles or Buchanan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's enormous, and it has to come from other players, right? In the second one that you saw there with Buchanan, Chapman's in a position to be able to see the player coming and needs to be able to tell her. When you get to a World Cup scenario, especially in Australia, where it will be loud, particularly when you're playing Australia, you won't be able to hear Sheridan from all the way out there. So that communication has to come from multiple sources. Has to come from your covering defenders. Again, this is a scenario where Buchanan and Gilles get stretched wide, and the cover behind them isn't there. And that cover comes in terms of body positioning, but it also comes in terms of how you're communicating. You can cover with communication as well. It has to come from all the players who are around her.
Yeah, listen, we've all been in environments, whether you've played in them or I've gone and I've just covered them as a journalist. It can get so loud in there you can't even hear yourself think. It is so key to be loud with communication with one another, screaming on the pitch to make sure those types of missteps don't happen in the game. Fortunately for the Canadians, it doesn't result in a goal this time around as it did in Game 1. In fact, they're the ones who did the scoring here tonight. 2-0 against Brazil. Next up for them will be Japan. Let's get you ready for that match next. Final game at the SheBelieves Cup. We'll see Canada take on Japan, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. Be sure to tune right back here on One Soccer. With the three of us, we'll get you ready for that. And Japan was a force for about a good 4 or 5 years, right, Claire? From 2011 to 2015. 2011, they were world champions. 2012, they were Olympic silver medalists. 2015, world silver medalists again, making it to the final there. But where would you put Japan since then, in the last few years, when it comes to how they compete on the international stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been in a rebuilding year. Even 2019, they had a very average group phase at the World Cup. Started to come out of their shell a little bit in the knockout rounds, but by that point, it was a little bit too late. They just don't really seem to have that star striker or that player who can take games over for them. And it used to be a player like Marisawa prior to her retirement, but they just have not seem to replace that, and that's prevented them from rising up to where they used to be in the rankings. They're consistent. They're always a very organized and very talented and a very technical team, but without that extra kind of special player, I'm just not sure if they're quite ready to get back to where they were in 2011. They'll be a very difficult team for Canada to break down, I think, but they might not be necessarily as dangerous as the Americans or even as the Brazilians.
Yeah, Canada played their opening match against Japan at the Tokyo Olympics. Christine Sinclair scoring the opening goal. Japan finishing third in the group, just making it out of the group stage at the Olympics, and then ultimately falling at the hands of Sweden in the quarterfinals. And I guess that's it. They are technical, so you never want to dismiss them. But I wonder, like, this is probably going to be a good showing for the Canadians as well to see where Japan is at. Because Japan, like all the teams here at the SheBelieves Cup, they're all going to the World Cup. Yeah,
and we spoke about cohesiveness and the lack of it for the Canadians' offense. So I think going against a team like Japan, who's very well organized, both offensively and defensively, will be a good test for them to see if Canada can really, play amongst each other and break them down and find those gaps. I think it'll be a good challenge for Canada.
We always love to play the game of the best starting 11 for a team. Do you think, Claire, that Bev Priestman is there? Or does she also strike you as the kind of coach, based on even what we saw today, where even though she'll have a starting 11, she is not afraid to make a change immediately, which, by the way, is something we did see at the Olympics as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're best 11s at this tournament. I think you can't discount the importance of Nichelle Prince and Deanne Rose, and I really do hope that they will be fit for the World Cup and fit to play 90 minutes for the World Cup, because I think their dynamism on the flanks is really missed. With respect to the back four, again, I think they're missing Jade Revere, who I think has probably locked down a starting fullback position. The question is, who is that remaining fullback? I think at this stage, I don't think there's a strong enough answer to who that other fullback can be unless it is Ashley Lawrence. And as much as I'd like to see her pushed into the midfield, I think in the end we'll likely see her in that fullback role. When it comes to the midfield, you have to put Jessie Fleming farther forward. She's absolutely wasted as a holding midfielder. So that I think that pivot in the defensive aspect of the midfield ends up becoming Julia Grosso and Quinn. I mean, I thought Simi Ujo could fill that role as well, but likely not quite in a starting capacity just yet. The up front is still a bit of a mystery to me. I mean, did they end up going Prince and Rose on the flanks and put Evelyne Viens up top? Does Sinclair fit into the starting lineup? I'm not sure she does at this stage, but I'm not sure what the most dangerous combination is up front for this Canadian side.
Yeah, so I didn't really get an answer on starting 11 there. I don't know.
Of course you didn't. We're going to get a straightforward answer out of me.
Okay,
I expect the whiteboard next time for you to actually draw this possibility and that possibility and this but that's just it, right? Like if you're Bev Priestman, you're probably looking at this board with all these players going, you know, insert here, insert there, which in many ways that is a nice luxury to have. But in other ways, isn't it also nice to know that this is a starting 11 that you can just lock and load?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard when you don't know who you can necessarily rely on. I don't think, you know, up front anyone has really made their mark, and that's why, you know, I do agree with Claire. I would love to see Evelyne Viens step into that role over a Haidema at the moment, just based on performance. I do think she brings something to the game that right now everyone else in that offensive role doesn't bring. She is great in the 18-yard box. She is somebody that has proven that she can score. And then I would like to see, you know, people get an opportunity, those new people like a Clarissa Laracy, or maybe it is a Chloe Lacasse, but either way, somebody getting in there. But in regards to a solidified 11, that front three for me is very up in the air. I do agree in the midfield it would be nice to have, you know, a Lawrence and a Grosso and a Fleming. But in an ideal world, that's an ideal world. I'm not sure if that will happen. I do think that Ashley will get stuck back at left back. But that all depends, again, on Rose and Prince being back, just to see if, you know, Becky can drop back into that role. So there's so many different options. So I can't give you a solid answer like you want, but I do think there are many options, but yeah, I don't know.
Now, and listen, they have another game to go. We're obviously keeping our fingers crossed for the April camp, more because we also want to see a resolution between the women and Canada Soccer, because we want to see them continue with their preparations for the World Cup. But I do want to go back to Christine Sinclair, because we've been having this conversation, not just at the national team level, Claire, but also at the pro level. We also did see her with Portland this year come off the bench even during the playoffs. And I wonder if this is a position we're going to start seeing more and more for Christine Sinclair, where this is a player who comes in off the bench. You obviously want her part of the team. Bev Priestman has made it perfectly clear she's not going anywhere. And why would she? She still can be a factor. More than anything, she is a great leader in that room. But would it be considered controversial if she doesn't start, or have people accepted that that does seem to be her role now?
I think, I would hope that people have accepted that. I mean, obviously you have her in the squad. That's not really a question. But from a starting perspective, I would hope that it is seen that we need to at some point move beyond this team's identity as Christine Sinclair as the lone striker, and I think need to move to more of a team approach to attacking. And what does that front three look like without her? And what does this tactical formation look like without her? Because for many years, the formation that this team has played has really centered around Christine Sinclair as a striker and a center forward. And is this really the best formation for the personnel that they have right now? I mean, you're 5 months before a World Cup. You're probably not going to be able to make huge, drastic changes between now and then. But beyond the World Cup, looking towards the Olympic Games in Paris and beyond that, what tactically does this team look like without Christine Sinclair? I mean, I think everyone's always asking, like, who is the next Christine Sinclair? I mean, I don't think that's a question we need to be asking. It's what does this team look like without her?
What's also important to know, because you just mentioned those Paris Olympics, they are into a qualifier as well, which will happen in September in order to solidify their spot at the Olympics, defend their gold medal. This is a very busy year ahead for the Canadians too, right? Like, this is a group where if Bev Priestman's trying to figure it out, it's got to be best foot forward at all times.
Yeah, this is the time to figure it out. Again, like you said, big year ahead, and that's why when I spoke about giving people a chance, potentially there might be a diamond in the rough that they don't know is sitting on the bench right now because they haven't had the opportunity, to try it out. So I, in regards to Christine Sinclair, I do think that, she has so much expertise, and when she's out there, you do see her experience, but I don't think that she is a starter at this moment. I do think she comes off the bench and adds that experience later on in the matchup. But as of right now, I don't think that it's best for her to be.
Hey, Bev's not scared to try things. Simia Wujo, she was in this one. Ashley Lawrence was playing as a right striker. We'll see what she has in store for us against Japan. That game goes Wednesday, so the Canadians feeling a lot better about themselves here tonight, picking up the victory 2-0 over Brazil. Vanessa, Gilles, Evelyne Viens, your goal scorers. Thanks for tuning in to One Soccer. We'll see you on Wednesday.